of the comments asked about Matt Frazier, 5-time CrossFit Games world champion, the most dominant CrossFit athlete ever. And apparently he used to keep something like this as his secret training tool. Matt had a lot of tricks up his sleeve.
So what's up, guys? John Francis here, Fuel Fitness Co. on this channel. You know, we're breaking down training, breaking down different gear, different supplements, and honestly looking at the evidence and just testing what actually works.
So almost 2 years ago now, I made a video on this weird little arm rotator contraption, and the video really blew up for me. My small little YouTube channel, it's gotten a lot of views and still continues to get a lot of views. In fact, it gets the most views of any video I've got. Your comments taught me some things, or at least gave me some insight to some of the questions that you had about the product itself. And it made me realize this is an interesting, popular product. Today, after 2 years of use, I'm coming back with the full update. There's some things that I did wrong. There's some things that I think I can do better, and some ways that not only a CrossFitter can use this arm rotator, but other sports as well. So if you haven't seen the first video, I'm gonna link it here so you can go back and watch it. Quick recap, this is a hand, bicep, forearm, shoulder trainer. It's basically two handles that are connected by a bearing system, and you just rotate. You just simply rotate the handles. Mine rotates freely, but if you notice now, when I went back and started looking for these items, looked at my old video, looked at my link, in my old video, I could not find this same rotator that I have. It seems like most of the rotators now have adjustable resistance on them, which I really, really like. And that's one thing that I think I did wrong. I think as much as I paid for this, I should have just went ahead and got the adjustable resistance version. And I think I was a little worried at the time that the resistance would be too much, because these things, they're not heavy, but they're slightly heavy for, sitting there just holding this thing for a long time, 1 to 2 minutes. I thought that would be enough, but honestly, now if I could do it over again, I would get one of the adjustable resistance versions, because I think they're more versatile and they have more use. So that's what I would recommend to use now. But the thing about it is it's such a simple contraption. Like, it's kind of a laughable contraption. It's something that really looks odd. It looks strange. Like, when I bought it, my wife was like, what is this thing? And my take at the time, I used it a little more for active recovery. That's what I was using it for, and building arm endurance. And now I still think that it can be used greatly for active recovery. It can be used for building arm endurance as well. But you guys had different questions, and some of them were really good. One of the questions was, can this thing really get your heart rate up? Can you really get your heart rate up with this thing? Does it build the biceps? Does it actually build the muscles? Or is it just for endurance? Who is it actually good for? Swimmers, surfers, CrossFit athletes. So after 2 years of actually using it, has my opinion changed? So the first thing that a lot of people asked is the durability. Someone in the comments said they bought a knockoff from Temu and the resistance pad just wore out. The thing died. And I'm not really sure exactly what they were talking about there. And but the one I have, the Fitty version, which they do have a Fitty version with adjustable resistance, and I am seriously considering buying that. But they are a little bit expensive. So I'm considering it, but it may be a little while before I get around to that. The version that I purchased, this thing still works exactly like it did day one. The bearings in it are fine. The bearings in it work great. It's very, very smooth. I've been using this thing for 2 years, and I feel like most of these should be pretty durable. The only thing I would question is the ones with adjustable resistance. I feel like there is more room for error in those to have some kind of malfunction or to break. Whereas in this version with non-adjustable resistance, there's not much that could go wrong besides the bearings. Now, the little rubber grips are kind of coming off a little bit, but that doesn't matter to me at all. Actually, I'm like, I can see underneath the grip, this thing has a knurled little grip on it. So like, that won't be a problem at all. I'll be glad to use this thing once the rubber grips fall off, no big deal. But look, I get it. The Temu knockoffs and things like that can be tempting. But when I bought this one, I think it was $124.99, and it's very durable and it works very well. So I would recommend just paying a little bit more. If I was going to go right now, if I was going to go buy one right now, I would buy the Fitty version, which is going to be linked in the description, with the adjustable resistance. Now, I don't have any experience with that particular rotator, but I know that mine is a Fitty version and it seems to be high quality. So if I was going to go out and purchase one again, that's the one that I would risk my money on, is the Fitty adjustable resistance version, or at least one that has, there's a couple others that have some great reviews. I'm going to link at least one of those in the description as well. One of the most common questions in the comments was basically, can you get your heart rate pretty high with this, or not really? Like, and what I'm going to say about that is this is not a tool unless you're pretty unfit and you're really strong. Like let's say you're some kind of power lifter who's like really, really strong, but you're unfit. Yeah, this thing might get your heart rate up if you use it for a while. The problem that you're going to run into is I think your arms and your arm muscles are going to burn out before your heart rate actually gets up. So I don't think that this is a replacement for running. It's not a replacement for rowing. It's not a replacement for, you'd be better served to walk on an incline, to bike, to run, to row, to ski, to do a lot of things versus trying to use this for cardio. Now, because it's just simply not going to get your heart rate enough. Like by the time my heart rate starts to get up, my arms are burning out faster than this thing. Now, maybe if you're somebody with elite level arm endurance, or like I said, somebody who's really, really strong, so to them, this thing is extremely light, maybe you can use it to get your heart rate up, but I don't look at it as anything to do with heart rate. Now, what I will say is it can be an auxiliary tool if you are doing a long cardio session, a long GPP session, which I know not tons of people probably do, but I think they're highly beneficial, is a long, low impact cardio session, aerobic session. And that's where you're going to keep your heart rate below your lactate threshold, below that aerobic threshold. You're going to stay in an aerobic zone, like a zone 2 heart rate, maybe zone 3 heart rate, somewhere in that area, top of zone 3. So for me, like a 39-year-old male, I'm not going to really be going above, I'm going to try to stay 155 and below, but it's still try to keep my heart rate above 120. And I'm doing a bunch of different GPP exercises and low impact exercises to keep my heart rate up for a long period of time. This is an easy way to just train your heart, train your cardiovascular system. I'm not going to get too much into that, but I can use this as an auxiliary tool during that type of exercise. For example, let's say I'm doing some reverse sled drags and I'm working on those. I come off the reverse sled drag and my legs, are slightly fatigued, and I don't want to go into another exercise that's going to really blow my legs up. I'm not trying to really fatigue the legs, right? This is just low heart rate training. My next movement could be something like this arm rotator. Now I'm switching that little bit of pooled blood from my legs. I'm shifting and redirecting that blood flow back up to my arms. And this thing is not going to strain the heart rate. So too bad. So it's going to let your heart rate come back down a little bit. And it's almost a heart rate regulator. So you can use this as a tool to regulate your heart rate and keep your heart rate slightly up, but not elevate it too much. But this is not going to do it. This isn't going to do it for cardiovascular endurance and getting your heart rate up. So someone asked, the next question someone asked, will this build the biceps or is it just for speed and strength? I would say this is not for building big muscles in the biceps because it's not really it doesn't really fit the mold for a hypertrophy target zone unless you're somebody who is pretty deconditioned, doesn't have a lot of muscle at all. Then maybe this may, for a real true beginner, may build your biceps for a little while, right? But after a while, somebody that's trained for years or even 2 years, it's not going to do anything to build your biceps, to build the muscles in your biceps. This is just an endurance tool. It's not for speed. It's not for strength. I mean, I guess essentially you could use this like a speed bag for speed, but I think that it weighs down so much on your shoulders. There's no context that I can think of where I would use this contraption for speed. It generates too much fatigue in the arms, and I think this is more of a tool to build slow twitch muscle fibers to increase endurance in your biceps, in your forearms, in your shoulders. And depending on how you use that, we'll get more into that. But yeah, I mean, I would recommend to answer that question, if you want to build the biceps, there's nothing greater than a pull up or a chin up, especially a chin up to build the biceps, and a chin up where you're really focusing on the bicep even more than your lat muscles. Your lats, you've got to build the lats too, but we're talking biceps here. There's a certain type of chin up that you can do where you really lean back in a certain way where you can target the biceps and try to keep yourself far away from the bar. And man, those are a massive bicep builder. But chin ups, even bicep curls, those are going to be your exercises that you're going to want to use to build the biceps, not this tool. This is going to be more for endurance. Someone in the comments asked about Matt Frazier. For those who don't know, he is a 5-time CrossFit Games world champion and one of the most, if not the most dominant CrossFit athlete ever. One of the most well-rounded CrossFit athletes ever. And apparently he used to keep something like this as his secret training tool. Matt had a lot of tricks up his sleeve. He wasn't stupid. This is one of the tools that he used for active recovery and building arm endurance. I can really see why he used this, because in CrossFit, many times you're doing high repetitions of movements, muscle ups, bar muscle ups, pull ups, kipping pull ups. And a kipping pull up, you're using a lot of your hips to keep generating the force. The kip was designed so you could do the pull up movement faster. So it was made so your limiter would not be your biceps, your limiter would not be your forearms or your lats, but it would, so you could use your hips to generate more pull-ups and do the workout faster. But that being said, when you're doing those because you're kipping, you can do a high amount of repetitions of pull-ups. That's where I think a tool like this comes in, is doing high reps of pull-ups, also combined with other movements that are going to tax your grip and tax your forearms at the same time. So for example, you're doing movements like cleans or deadlifts where you're hanging onto a bar, and then you're going back into a movement like pull up, and then maybe back to a movement like the row where you're pulling. And I know you're generating most of that with your legs, but you got to think about it. During that exercise, your biceps, your forearms, your grip between those three movements are constantly working. And I think this is where a tool like this can come in and really build mitochondrial density in the arms in a similar way to biking can build mitochondrial density in the legs. That's why a lot of athletes who are trying to build endurance spend lots and lots of time on a spin bike, like a Concept 2 bike erg or a Peloton bike, some kind of bike like that, in order to build up a lot of mitochondrial density in the legs. So when we talk about building mitochondrial density, you do build localized mitochondrial density in the actual muscle that you're working. And that's where this can be a great tool. Most of the time you do that through aerobic exercise. That's not to say that you don't do it through other types of exercise, but a lot of the time you do it through aerobic types of exercise. And when you think about trying to simulate something like a spin bike that you can do for an hour straight, there's not a lot of arm exercises that you can do for any time more than 2 minutes or so. So this is where I think using a tool like this in conjunction with other tools and other movements, you can use it to build arm endurance in the arms, which is going to be greatly beneficial for sports, for swimming, for grappling, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, CrossFit, all those types of sports. So for example, you could be doing a circuit where you are doing, to build endurance in the arms, maybe you're doing one heavy movement such as a pull-up. So you're doing like, let's say you can do 10 strict pull-ups, but you're just going to do 3 strict pull-ups in the arms, but the legs are going to be there for assistance as a regulator to make sure that you can keep moving with the arms, but you're not blowing the arms up. You're not getting the arms to a place where they're totally fatiguing and it's making you have to rest and stop. And then maybe from there moving to something like a ski, and then just alternating between those exercises to have this big block, this big compound set, this big interval, and you just keep lengthening that interval to the point where your arms are durable and you're building mitochondrial density and a lot of endurance in the arms. As long as you're training in other ways too, as long as you're still strength training, you're still doing explosive training, I would recommend doing speed pull-ups, like banded pull-ups in conjunction on your other days, continuing to do your bar muscle ups, your ring muscle ups, your pull-up capacity, and monitoring that to make sure that your strength levels aren't dropping. But you could really build tons and tons of arm endurance. And I've been able to do that and really move the needle, especially in jiu-jitsu. My arms and forearms have always been, I do have a strong grip, but my arm endurance, my biceps, I tend to not have good bicep endurance. My forearms, I tend to not have good forearm endurance. And they are the first thing to go for me. They're the first thing to blow. And so when I started really using this tool in that way, I started to see major improvements in the endurance in my arms. And not only that, that also in conjunction with leg endurance exercises too, I will say they played a role as well, improving that overall cardiovascular system definitely helps as well. Some things I genuinely didn't talk about in the first video that people brought up was one, holding it up like a speed bag. Someone mentioned this, and if you hold it up high and rotate it, you can get that shoulder burn. Now, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to really increase shoulder endurance, that's another way to use it. You could hold it up high like this, and you could incorporate that into other sports. Maybe that does help a little bit for boxing, right? You do a little bit with the rotator, which is going to really get them arms. It's going to start getting to that point of the burn, and you stop shy of really building up that fatigue, and then go into a real speed bag and start hitting the real speed bag and work from there. And using it just as another tool to mix it up and build some arm endurance or build some shoulder endurance. But it's definitely something that in the CrossFit world you could probably incorporate into something, or High Rocks world, you could incorporate into something like a wall ball. If your shoulders tend to be the thing to go on a wall ball, then maybe this could help be another tool for shoulder endurance. Maybe things like handstand walks and other different movements like that, increasing shoulder endurance. Maybe you could use it in that way for that. Secondly, swimmers and surfers. Someone asked, is it good for them? Honestly, yeah, I could see the rotation. I'm not a swimmer, I'm not a surfer, but I could see that rotational pattern could really maybe have some benefits and some carryover for swimming mechanics. So, I think that, yeah, it's very possible that could be some type of exercise that you could incorporate in. And typically a lot of the swimmers are going to already have great aerobic, great bases, and they're probably going to have great mitochondrial density in their shoulders and their arms. So maybe for that person, they could use this for more interval training, like 1 minute on, 1 minute off type of thing, depending on your endurance level, right? You may need to increase that or drop that off. But I think you could use it for that. People asked about martial arts, and yeah, I think definitely for different martial arts, somebody mentioned Wing Chun, like chain punches, and I think definitely it could have some carryover there. It's just using these tools in the right way. You need to understand energy systems a little bit and understand what you're using it for. Like I said, to me, it's not going to be a tool for speed, speed and strength. It's going to be more of an endurance tool. I think you got to use it for that way. And, you have to have an understanding of metabolic systems and energy systems and how they work and how to train them a little bit, just to know. And when you go to programming, you want to make sure you want to elicit the stimulus that you want, right? You got to think about that and understand how things work. When you're speed training, you don't speed train to fatigue. You're speed training, so you want to be fresh and hitting hard, explosive sets every single rep. So that's why, for example, like Andy Galpin talks about, if you're speed training, you're going to typically be doing, at the most 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps. Same thing with strength training. Now, that's not to say that you can't build, yes, I know other rep ranges build strength, but it's a generalization. You're going to want to stay in those. Like if I'm doing speed training, I'm doing it when I'm not fatigued. That's going to be the first, after my warm up, that's going to be the first exercise I do. So I can generate all the force needed to make it truly speed work or truly power work. Same thing with strength. You're not strength training at the end of a workout when you're fatigued. You go do jujitsu and you grapple for an hour and you're tired. Now you're not strength training when you get done with jujitsu. You can do other kinds of training. You can build muscle, you can build hypertrophy, you can build endurance, you can build power endurance, you can build strength endurance. That's the strength you have under fatigue, but you're not building top end strength. Anyways, rant over there. I mentioned that nowadays I don't see many free spin versions. Most of the versions have resistance. That's where now I haven't felt the resistance on those, but that's where now maybe I doubt it, but maybe the resistance is strong enough to get a strength stimulus or strong enough to get some kind of hypertrophy or muscle building stimulus. I can't speak to that. I haven't tried one yet, but if it's hard enough for you that you can only do 1 minute or less at a time, then I would say yes, you might be eliciting some kind of muscle building response. So if you can't spin, if you're failing, your actual muscles are failing before a minute, with the resisted version. So it's actually your muscles failing. It's not just because it burns and you're like, oh, I want to quit. Your muscles are actually unable to push. Then what I would do, if you want to build muscle with it, stop at that minute or before, whenever you fail. And then now you're going to rest for 2-3 minutes and repeat that set. All right. And keep increasing that. But it's going to get to a point eventually where you're going to adapt and it's not going to drive any kind of strength or muscle adaptation anymore. But I don't know if the resistance is even strong enough for that because I haven't tried one. So final verdict, has my opinion changed over the years? Not really. I mean, initially I used it for recovery, muscle endurance, and it still stands today. The only thing I think I really did wrong is I bought the non-resistance version, and I'd love to try the version with resistance. Is this a staple tool? I would say not necessarily. I think there are a lot of things you can do to move the needle in other ways. But do I like to have one? Absolutely. But I have a lot of equipment already at home. I have a gym membership too. For me, it's just an auxiliary tool. I would definitely say if you are on a budget and you're trying to build a home gym or I would, say there's other things to make sure you have first. Priority things. You're going to want to have a power rack, a squat rack, a barbell, some plates. Like to me, that's one of the most essential things you're going to want to have to build strength, to build muscle. And then you maybe a gym membership that has all kinds of machines and barbells and all that kind of thing. And then once you have all of that, then maybe a tool like this is something that can assist. But that's all it is. It's a tool. And I think there's definitely a lot more essential pieces of equipment. Okay. So I'm not promoting this as a staple, but I think that like anything, it's a tool that can be added. If you have one of these and you're using it, drop it in the comments below. Let us know. Give us some info. If you bought one that's a piece of crap, put a link in the description below so we know that one is a piece of crap, and make sure to tell us not to buy it. If you bought one that's really good and you recommend it, please drop a comment. Let us know. If you think this tool is stupid, I would love to hear about that. If you have any other cool tools or things that you would recommend to others that fall kind of along the same line as an auxiliary tool, would love to hear about those. Or if you have any other opinions on this, because obviously I don't know everything and I'm just trying to test and always figure out what works. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been hybrid training for 20 years, doing all sorts of different types of training, and I'm always learning, always finding out new things. And so I would love to learn from you as well. If this was helpful if you would so graciously just hit the like button, that helps me out and helps get my video out there. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I do absolutely appreciate your time.